We have the ability to live a better quality life than ever before, but why is it that so many people seem unhappy and unfulfilled in their day-to-day life? Well, for me, I think that a lot of this comes down to purpose, and for a lot of young guys especially, there's a lack of a major purpose in their lives. And I think we are the most fearful generation we have ever had, yet it is easier than ever before, something that should not be the case. And I don't see many people taking major so-called risks that aren't even risks anymore in their lives. And I think a lot of people live completely mediocre lives, below a standard that they could achieve, below a standard that, is okay for them to live at. And I think a lot of this is just come down to fear. And I think this is the reason they are very fearful is because of social media and a lot of society's kind of norms about what they should do. And I think a lot of people live complete autopilot lives throughout the course of their lives, really. And don't get me wrong, autopilot is very good for a lot of the kind of mundane stuff we do, driving to work, getting to places, brushing our teeth, making food, a lot of stuff that we do every day that we've been doing for 20, 30 years that, we don't have to think about too much. And like I say, there's a time and place for that. But when it comes to kind of bigger decisions, where do you want to live? What do you want to do for the purpose of your life? What is the main goal? What are your goals that you're working towards? Who do you want to be with? Where do you want to wake up? How do you want your life to be? Do you want it to be mainly work? Do you want it to be more fun? Big questions that a lot of people probably spend the same amount of time looking at a menu in a restaurant, think about these questions, because they're major questions that I don't think a lot of people think about. You see that when you speak to people, you're like, okay, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Or, what are your kind of goals? What are you working towards at the moment? I don't think a lot of people know the answer to this. And they kind of come up, well, I'm just trying to save up a bit of money to, maybe I'll go traveling, and then, well, it's just good to have money, money's money, whatever, and, I'm fairly content here, but you can kind of feel that it's probably not exactly, where they want to be, but for a lot of people, they kind of sit in this kind of mediocre life that's not kind of going anywhere, that's very much stagnated, and you see that across the board. You see that in their life, you see that in their career, you see that in their relationships, and it pretty much, if they have it in one area, they're probably going to have it in a lot of different areas in their life. And for me myself, I've always kind of been around this area of my life. I'm from a small town in Leicestershire, and I've seen the UK very much take a turn for the worst over the last few years. And for me, I very much see my future overseas. I see myself trying different places, having the freedom to pick up and leave if I don't feel like a place is right for me, and exploring different options, because for me, I don't think this would be the ultimate place that I would choose to live. If I could choose to live anywhere in the world, I wouldn't choose to live here, and that is almost definitely true for you. And a lot of people that say, maybe the grass isn't greener and all of this stuff, they haven't experienced other things in life. They haven't travelled to certain corners of the world. They haven't embraced new cultures. They haven't even had that open mindset of seeing what is possible. And especially in this era where we can, work from a laptop, we can make money online, a lot of different possibilities than being in one set location and working a normal job for 40 years. There's endless possibilities that you can make this possible. You just have to be creative and have that mindset of thinking this is possible in the first place, because that is over 50% of the challenge, is you believing that it's possible. And for me, having that open mindset from a young age has allowed me to do this. And I think you just have to go with what feels right for you in the moment. We all need to take this, trust that intuitive feel. Can't get that word out, but you know exactly what I mean. With that feeling you get inside of your stomach that's kind of telling you to do something, you have to act on that, because I know there's been many occasions where I haven't acted on that, and I've definitely regretted it later on. And there's been times where I have acted, and that has just kind of is manifested, and it's had an overall positive net impact on my life. And that might be a small thing, that might be a longer term, bigger kind of implication, but these things that we have to, remember, we do have one life, and life is 100% for living. And I think we all need to remind ourselves, we all know this is true. You'll be agreeing with pretty much everything I'm saying because it's very obvious. But I think the important kind of reason why I'm making this video is because a lot of people tend to forget it, and you need that constant reminder, and I need that reminder too. There's a lot of times where I feel very stagnant, and for a while over the last few months I felt very stagnant. There's been certain things that have been out of my control that I've maybe coped and felt like, I kind of have to stay in this position, or I feel like maybe the best thing is to do nothing. And don't get me wrong, there's a time and place for that, but when you feel it inside of yourself that you're not making the progress that you need to make, and you're not taking the necessary steps each day, you need to kind of take a step back, and don't be too harsh on yourself, because I don't believe that's the right way to go about it. But think, okay, be a bit more intentional about what you're doing, and stop being on autopilot and doing the same things. Just even taking a different route to wherever you're going on your day-to-day travels can make a big thing. It gets your brain ticking, because I think a lot of the time, once we get kind of past 25, 30, our life has become so mundane. We take the same trip to work, we go to the same places to eat, we listen to the same music, we might start going to the same holiday destinations, all of this stuff. And if that makes you happy, good for you. But I very much think that a lot of life is novelty. We want to experience new things, we want to try different things, and that's an important part of life. It's exciting, it's what gives us a dopamine hit, and we all know from the last few years how important that is in our psychological makeup, and is a big part of human life, a reward system that we have to embrace. And I always say, you don't want to regret things. If you do something and it doesn't go right, okay. But for me personally, I'd always prefer to be that person who has taken that risk, or whatever it may be, than regret it, even if it hasn't worked out. Because how many things you do that, it sounds quite exciting to you, but there's maybe a small amount of risk, and it's probably not even risk, but it's probably in your head, like, I might not have enough money, what my family gonna think, what if it doesn't work out. A lot of these stuffs they're not even real anyway. Like, people aren't thinking about you as much as you might think they want to. You're not that special at the end of the day. None of us are, and that might hurt for me to say that to you, but I can assure you that is the truth of the fact. That's why you have to pick up a camera and start recording yourself and say whatever shit that you want to say, because no one cares about you as much as you do. But that's what a lot of people think. They think, there's a negative side to it, and we always dwell on that. We don't look at all the positives of being like, I might meet someone, I might, meet the love of my life, the person I want to be with, I might find something amazing, I might love the culture, I might love just a lifestyle, I might find a career, I might just feel like that is the place where I'm meant to be, compared to, your hometown that you were just born in. You had no choice over it. You've just grown up here, and it's not just that you're meant to be here. I don't believe in any of that. Some people may disagree or whatever, but I'm pretty certain, like, you have to try different things, and you have to live your life. And I realised you can't think too far into the future either. Like, you can't think, all these things are going to go wrong. I think having anything more than a 3-year plan is just a bit silly to kind of think, okay, I'm going to do this in 5-10 years, I'm going to still have the appetite for that. Well, no, because you never know what's around the corner, and I've seen that in my personal life. I saw my mum get very ill, deteriorate, and unfortunately lose a life within a couple of years. And I don't like to think that could be me or you, but it's possible that it could happen to you. And to think too far ahead is very naive. And if something feels right, you have to take that opportunity right now, because we don't have the same energy throughout our life. There'll be periods now, for example, I'm in my 20s, for me to go to somewhere like South America, which I'm planning on doing, so I'm probably not going to want to do this even in 10 years time. I'm probably going to want to start to have a family. I'm going to want to settle down and be with one person and have a more stability with my life. That's probably going to be the case. Is it definitely? I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. None of us do. For me to say that's definitely going to happen, I can't. But I know that if I didn't take this opportunity and thought, maybe I'll just stay, play it a bit more safe, I could build up some more money and get some more assets, and then maybe I'll go to South America. Then I'll have... It's always then. It's always in the future. And that's what people live. They don't live in the present. And that's all we have at the end of the day. And if you don't kind of have that, then it's probably never going to happen, because there's always going to be one thing after another and another. And I understand, there might be something major in your life. I'm currently waiting for something... for me in my personal life that is out of my control that should be done within the next couple of months, which will allow me to move on to the next step of my life, that I've been unable to do so for the last couple of years. Yes, I understand that can happen, but for a lot of people, you can quit that job right now. You can, leave your family home and go to Australia, go to wherever it may be, and come back if it doesn't work out. Like, what is the worst thing? You come back and then you live the life you were living anyway. And even with that, even if it goes horribly wrong, you have an abundance of experience, and that is so important in life, experience and those memories, because that's all we have on our deathbed. That's what we're going to have, our memories and our experiences, and those times where we tried something that was different, that had that novelty, that we met different people, and we have stories to tell when we're growing old. Is that not what life's all about? Instead of sat at a desk fucking hunched over, working from your laptop, doing some shit work that you don't give a fuck about, spending time with people you don't like, eating shit, watching Netflix. Like, that's not life. That is not life at all. If you want to do those things in small moderation, feel free, go ahead. It's okay every now and then, but that's not what life is all about. You don't know when it's going to be over, and I really hope this message is hammering home that there'll be different stages in your life. Say you live to 80 years old, for example, there's going to be things in your 20s, things in your 30s, things in your 40s, 50s, 60s. There's going to be kind of a gap where that thing feels right, and you have to take that opportunity regardless of money, regardless of circumstances. You have to go with that, because you're almost definitely going to kind of look back and think, I could have gone out to South America for a year, and I could have met someone, and I kind of wish I did that, but now I'm 35 and I've got a wife, I've got the kids, I've got quite a big mortgage. I'm in this quite, job that, I have a lot of stress over and all of this stuff. Like, you're just not going to take that opportunity, are you? And I even look back at now and think, I went to uni for a bit, but I didn't really kind of embrace the lifestyle. I kind of even look back now and think, I probably should have done that a lot more. But this is a small example. It's not a massive regret of mine, but it's things that I look back to, and we're all going to have those, but we want to have as little as those as possible. We want them to be very small things. And I think saying yes to a lot of things, especially when you're young, especially when they feel right in the moment, is exactly the right thing to do, because, like I say, you don't know what is going to happen in your life, and if it feels right to you, you have to do so. And that's what we have in life is moments and memory dividends, and that's going to kind of have a positive effect for you life, having these stories, having these moments to share, instead of you meet these people where kind of you can tell when you speak to them, they've kind of just been around their hometown, they've worked one job since college or whatnot. They don't really have too much to talk about because they live that autopilot life, and this makes up probably 80% of the people, especially probably like UK, US people, where there's a bigger emphasis on working a kind of normal job, building up your money, getting a house, getting on the property ladder, having kids, settling down. All this stuff, there's a massive emphasis on it in the Western culture. They don't have that, and I think that is a massive part why they are less happy, less fulfilled in their life. They're not taking risks, they're not taking opportunities when they know it was the right thing to do, because they lived in fear. And I just don't want to see you do that. I don't want to see myself do that. That's the biggest reason I made this video. But for you too, it's very important that you don't live that life. When you see an opportunity, when it feels right, I want you to go for it. And I hope you come back to this video and kind of say, there was these things that I was scared about, and at one point I was like, I'm not going to do it, but now I've decided, I've watched this video and actually want to take advantage of that. I want to make that memory. I want to make sure that I don't have any regrets when I'm a lot older and think, I played it way too safe. I didn't live a life that's true to myself, and that's the number one regret that people have on their deathbed, and I don't want you to have that. So I hope this video has been very insightful. It was important for me to make it. I've missed making some videos. I need to get back on the content creation. I have to hold my hands up and be accountable that that's not been good enough, and I want to get back onto it, making some purposeful videos and hopefully helping me and yourself improve our lives and giving us some lessons that we can all learn from and develop and live a better life. So I hope this video has been great for you. Like and subscribe. If you need any more guidance, I have a one-to-one personal coaching link, which is like $10 for half an hour. If you want that, feel free to tap that and we'll get in contact. I'll see you in the next video then. Take care.